The passenger rail agency, PRASA, says it will embark on a series of cash recovery measures after the High Court in Johannesburg judgment against Daniel Mthimkhulu, who had labelled himself a doctor when his highest qualification was Matric. The court ordered Mthimkulu to repay 5.7 million rand he had earned as a senior manager. PRASA says Mthimkulu also played a central role in the dodgy Swifambo contract and judgments in this regard, and also this clears the way for the rail agency to recover more than 2.6 billion rand. PRASA says it will continue in its efforts to root out corruption at the agency. On the line now, we're speaking to PRASA Board chairperson, Ms Khanyisile Kweyama, on the outcome of the court action against Mr Mthimkulu. A very good morning to you, Ms Kweyama. Your reaction to this judgment?
Good morning, Desiree, and thanks for having us. As you have read in the statement, we welcome the High Court judgment. It really has been a long journey for PRASA, not only just in terms of Mr Mthimkulu's particular matter, but just in terms of implementing all the public protectors' recommendations in terms of the appointments of the companies such as Swifambo that you have mentioned. So it really is welcomed by PRASA. It sets the tone that says that the entity will have the might of the law behind it as it goes to recover money that has been irregularly awarded in the past.
This points, however, to a serious flaw in your recruitment process. Will you review your HR processes to ensure this kind of thing doesn't happen in the future?
So this has been happening, Desiree. Shortly after our appointment last year, we actually reviewed qualifications. There had been a process that had taken place where the NQF and SAQA had been engaged in terms of verifying qualifications of managers from a certain level all the way up to the top executives. The board has also been reviewing policies across the board, human resources policies, to ensure that such things do not ever happen again in the future, I mean.
Is the company laying criminal charges against Mr Mthimkulu?
So the legal team is working on a couple of initiatives, including looking at criminal activities.
And the process of recouping the monies from him, how far is that?
So when Mr Mthimkulu left PRASA, I am advised, because it was before our time, that his pension fund was not paid out to him. So that will be the first point of reference for recoveries, and depending on whether the money in the fund is sufficient, then we would look at other civil recoveries on his personal property or whatever it is that he has.
What was Mr Mthimkulu's role in the unlawful 3.5 billion rand tender which is awarded to Swifambo Rail?
So typically, Mr Mthimkulu was the head of engineering services. So he would have presented the specs, he would have presented the motivation to the evaluation committees that then appointed, as you asked about Swifambo. So when you see that he actually wasn't qualified to do that, it says that the whole process was faulty. You will also be aware that in a separate matter, that Swifambo contract in particular has been set aside by the court. There were appeals by the company all the way to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court confirmed that the contract was irregular. So that part is done, which confirms that it actually was not done properly to start with.
You spoke earlier about compliance with the public protector reports. What's happening with the SIU investigations that are also ongoing about allegations of looting and tender irregularities at PRASA? Can you tell us more about this?
So the SIU was invited by the PRASA Board. We met with them early in the year, around February, March. This then resulted in a process where the SIU, on behalf of PRASA, requested a proclamation from the president, because only the president can proclaim on SIU investigations. That was gazetted in August, and we have now started with the SIU, where it will go into PRASA and do the necessary investigations. But prior to that, we had accepted a secondment from the SIU as the PRASA Board, where it looked at various investigations, because from the time that the public protector had made a ruling and issued directives against PRASA, there had been a lull in terms of implementation. So the SIU has, during its secondment process, tenure rather, sifted out, for lack of a better word, those that are ready for investigation, those that need to be investigated further, and will be reporting to the PRASA Board quite imminently on where we are going with those. But it's still quite fresh because the proclamation was only issued in August.
What does this development do to the current efforts to help regain the public trust in PRASA, and how does it tie into all the other processes that are underway to try and reinvigorate the state entity?
It really gives a boost, Desiree, because as you may be aware, when employees know that there are people like this who are running the entity and are not qualified, it really frustrates professionals. I have spoken to professionals in the engineering department who would feel frustrated that their skills are not being utilized properly. So this does motivate them to know that the board, executive management does not tolerate fraudulent activities, and that they have an opportunity to now be part of fixing the entity. You will be aware, or you may be aware, that a couple of months ago, the Minister of Transport, who's our shareholder, also launched the War Room, which is looking at on an every week, every day basis, improving and recovering the rail system. So, when you have these out of the systems and employees are motivated and true professionals are doing the work of recovering the system, then we will start seeing the results. We are already starting to see that the War Room is bearing results, in that there is a concerted effort on recovery, on maintenance, on bringing the service back on track. And, this type of judgment just boosts the morale as well. In addition to bringing back, most importantly, money that was lost by the entity back into the entity, because the entity is also bleeding financially.
Let's thank you for talking to us this morning.
Thank you so much for having us, Ed.